Welcome to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. In this episode, I want to really talk about something several of my clients are doing. Started this several years ago, and I'm now seeing a lot of traction in the advisor space. And what I'm really talking about is are advisors becoming more personal CFOs to successful business owners and entrepreneurs. Hi, my name is Coach Joe Lukacs. I am the founder of Magellan Network and Mastermind. For over 32 years, I've done nothing but coach high-level financial advisors to be the best version of themselves, to create the ultimate business for themselves, and with the goal of hopefully never retiring. So in this episode, like I said, I want to talk about personal CFO. So first of all, what is a personal CFO? Let's talk about what that really looks like. Well, the difference between a financial advisor and a personal CFO, in my experiences, and I've got probably over 10 clients, personal clients now that are in this space of like in it, right? Developing criteria, protocols, systemization, elements like that. And the key difference is that we are not just dealing with like their assets, or we're not dealing with just their insurances. We are acting as the who in that business owner world to put together their quarterback, their entire game. So that's asset management, that's financial planning, that's business planning, that also could be exit planning, putting it all together. Because let's face it, for business owners, studies have shown up to 80 to 90% of their net worth is tied up in the business. And what gives a personal CFO model a massive advantage over a traditional asset management model is that in fact, all my clients bill on a percentage of business EBITDA or retainer. So in other words, if the owner has cash flow and profits, and let's say has very little investable assets, we can, in a personal CFO model, get hired. And I'm not a tax expert, so I'm going to put a big qualification around it. But I've been told by CPAs, that if the agreement is with the entity, that a large portion of the consulting fee is deductible to that entity. Again, I'm not here to give tax advice, but that's what I've been told. So in any case, if you're a financial advisor, you want to do your own research on that. My clients who have done the research have found that to be true. And obviously, if there are two advisors, one's going to act as a personal CFO, one's more traditional. If there's no assets, there's just not going to be a billing mechanism, an economic model that allows an engagement to take place, and that's a massive advantage. A lot of advisors, and again, this is just where we're going to, there's an old Tony Robbins saying, which was given to him by Wayne Gretzky, the great Gretzky, which is you want to skate to where the puck is going, not where it's at. And I truly believe that in advisor land, we're going to have a specialty, an area of specialty of these personal CFO models that are going to really serve that successful business owner entrepreneur. Because at the end of the day, the industry, in my experiences, has done a very poor job at serving the business owner. Why? Because the economic model did not exist. If you couldn't write a lot of insurance or have a lot of money to run, there was really nothing we can do. Right? You got this piecemeal, you'd have insurance. And I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur, for my entire adult life. And I can tell you from personal experience, having fragmented advice sucks, right? You have your financial planning, asset management person, you have your insurance person, you have your CPA who does nothing but file tax returns for you, by the way, zero consulting there. And where's the quarterback? Like, where's the person putting this all with? And you got the P&C and you got everything else. Like, where's the quarterback putting all this together? That's where a personal CFO comes in. I myself am in the market right now for one of these people because of the growth of my business. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And I'm not, and I'm like the target market. And I can't hire my clients, right? Because that's a conflict. I think it is. Point being is, like, I am not unique. And if I am in my little business here that, we do good business here. We're not like a manufacturing enterprise. Now we have 7-figure EBITDA, but It's not like, we have this big thing. And if I need one, imagine the marketplace. But here's the thing, you can't dabble. So if you're an advisor listening or watching to me, number one, you can't dabble. Okay. You got to decide to go into this. And that means you're going to have to learn about business. Now, what does that mean? Some of my clients, I'm not recommending you have to do this, but many of my clients in the business owner space have their SIPA, which is a certified exit planning designation. I think if you're going to be playing in the business owner space, I think the SIPA is probably more important than the CFP in that regard. So you've got to think about your educational requirements around that. But it's also about who you become, like your mindset. Like if you've been an advisor for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, are you ready to, in essence, walk away from that identity and really lean into this personal CFO kind of micro family office model? Because I can tell you the clients that I've got doing this, it is a bit of a different business. It feels more like it feels more like a coaching consulting business than it does purely asset management. So good, so there's the give there, right? So in other words, all the valuations today in our world is again assets under management, advisory, EBITDA or EBOC, multiple valuation, right? So in this model, it's going to be more planning consulting fees, light financial, and I'll explain that in a minute what my clients do around that. So it's a non-typical model, is my point. Now, do I think 10 years from now this will be very commonplace? Yeah, I mean, I really do believe we are in early adopter space with this. So again, if you're inclined to go play, great. I will tell you, to be absolutely honest with everybody here, that the wirehouse advisors have a disadvantage just because there are definitely some constraints of what they can do and what they cannot do from a billing perspective. If you're an RIA, you have a massive advantage right now in that space. Even if you're in a bit of an IBD scenario, you have definitely more of an advantage than the wirehouse person, but not as much advantage as the RIA entity would. So with that said, let's talk about what this looks like. So for my client, and by the way, kind of just to break this down even further, I've got clients that have very specific niches inside of the business owner entrepreneur space. And I've got clients that operate in a more global sense. And I don't think one is superior than the other from a revenue perspective. One I think could be a little easier, but also one takes longer to develop. So what do I mean by that? One of my clients, and you can check him out, Matt Francesco, High Lift Financial, specializes in family owned auto body slash collision shops. He is now, after I think 6 years, he and I working on this niche, he is the dominant go-to national player in this space. Okay. I also have clients like Matt Saul who will operate with businesses as long as there's a certain economic situation associated with that. So from manufacturing to an air ambulance service and then everything in between, right? So it all works. The interesting part about this is that if you, and I've had this tested, so hear that this was a thesis which has now been proven. So I've had clients who've gone into the space and basically have when they've gone to networking events, I've had them do testing. I said, hey, for the first half of this event, just introduce yourself as a financial advisor, financial planner, health advisor, whatever your past or current identity is, right? And they go do that. And all the feedback I've gotten is like people are nice and they want to disengage pretty damn quick because they got one of those or maybe even two of those, right? Second half of the event, hey, I want you to introduce yourself to new people as, hey, I'm a personal CFO. I work with successful business owners and entrepreneurs. Right. What's that? They all lean in. They want more information. They say, how do I get one of those? I didn't know that existed. Right. So in our very limited, if you will, sample size, maybe 5, the results have been absolutely the same, which is the advisor identity, been there, done that, got one, got several, to wow, new, haven't heard of that. What's that about? I didn't know it existed. How do you get one of those? Right. And that's the beauty of it. So point being is that right now, and I think for the foreseeable future, if you want to work with business owners and do deep dives, I mean, that marketplace is hungry and in desperate need of that financial quarterback. So what else goes on? So as that financial quarterback, you're going to do a ton of tax planning. You're going to do a ton of financial planning. You're going to interact with, and you're going to get limited power of attorneys to work with their CPA, their attorney. I've got clients that don't even custodian assets. The assets are at the Met, whereas BlackRock or Goldman or Schwab, it doesn't matter, or JP Morgan, it doesn't matter, right? Because we are the personal CFO. We become the financial quarterback. Now, with all that said, could you run assets? And I'm gonna give you a strategy around that a little bit. But before we get into that, what else are we doing for them? We are handling one of the big goals that my clients do in the personal CFO space is we deal with the 5 Ds. And most of you guys from the insurance world understand what the 5 Ds are, which are death, disability, divorce, disagreement, and distress, right? The 5 Ds. So that means buy sell, key man insurances, contingency plans, investment banking opportunity, like we coordinate all that, right? So your Rolodex, we bring the relationships, right? And we control all that, right? We become that point person. And for a busy, successful business owner, entrepreneur, they want somebody running point. You know why? Their love is their business. You know what their other love is? Their family, their kids. Like, do they want to sit there on a Saturday instead of going fishing or hunting or boating or golfing or playing with the kids or spending time with the family? Do you think they want to sit there and try to figure out on a spreadsheet, what's going on with their tax situation? Are they putting enough money away? Are we being tax efficient? Is there a better banking situation? They don't have the bandwidth. They don't want to do it, and they don't, right? So you become the financial quarterback. You put all the players together. You are the go-to, right? And that's critical. Doing all that, well, what's the economics look like? I will share, and it's a big, big, wide band, but I will tell you the minimum engagement. And I'm just talking about coaching consulting fees. Okay, so I'm talking about the retainers. I'm not talking about asset management fees. I'm not talking about insurance proceeds or anything like that. Just talking about the subscription or the retainer. My clients right now probably range anywhere a minimum of 2,000 a month up to probably 10,000 a month. I've got a couple that we charge $10,000 a month retainers. I do have one client who works very much like it's almost very much like a family office model where she has I won't get into the details too much, but she has a client, a family actually. They sold their company to a Fortune 100 company. Cash, I forget, proceeds were something like 400 or 500 million after tax. Big thing. We run none of the money. It is at JP and Goldman and BlackRock and so on. But my clients paid $500,000 a year on retainer to be that family CFO. So my point is that what matters in that personal CFO space for what we're doing is not so much how much assets they have, or net worth does matter a little bit, of course. It's EBITDA/EBOC. We've got to have enough profit where there's enough capital to afford our retainer. And I will tell you, the higher the EBITDA or the EBOC, depending on how you want to measure things, the more pain there is on the tax front, the more moving parts there are in that person's life, the more valuable we become, and they will compensate you to solve problems. There's an old saying: if you want to make a lot of money, solve big problems for people that have big money, right? So, with that being said, this is a great place to play. And again, you're going to be operating as the quarterback, which is really important. And like I said, the fee model. So, and I'm gonna give you like a nuance right now. Then we'll talk about kind of what the shift looks like and kind of what I do in that regard. And this may upset some people, and I'm going to phrase it that way, but hey, this is my outlet, so I'm just going to tell you what goes on. A lot of times we'll be brought in as that personal CFO, and they have an established advisor relationship, which is fine. And if they really love their advisor, my advice to my clients has always been, hey, you know what? We will get power of attorney. We will be the client. We will make sure the fees are right. We're going to make sure the allocation is right. So in other words, yeah, we're going to really second set of eyes. We're going to really do a second set of eyes on that. And a lot of times, and I'll give you an example, my client that I just mentioned with the very wealthy family, she went into all these entities and negotiated asset management fees. And between just by doing that, she's paid for herself several times over each year for what their initial bid was to run the money to what we negotiated down, right? Saving the family hundreds of thousands, if not probably a couple $1 million a year of asset management fees, right? So are we beloved by the people at those places? No, but who cares? Point I'm making at is that a lot of times, at minimum, we're going to make sure that they're not being overcharged because we know what the market is for asset management. And I'm going to give you this kind of strategy, and it doesn't work in all cases. But I've had pretty much every one of my clients in this personal CFO space. How we gather assets is, and remember, advisory fees are not deductible. And again, I'm not a tax expert. This is what I'm told. Advisory fees are not deductible. So if somebody's paying, let's keep the math simple. Let's say they have $1 million and they're being charged 1%. Simple math, right? So it's 1%, and then let's say it's an SMA allocation. So let's say we're all in for 1.25. Right. So what my clients will do is say, hey, we could bring that money over here. The manager fee will be the manager fee. We will only add a 10% oversight, 10 basis points oversight fee. So your fee would go from 125 down to 35 basis points for that $1 million because we got the retainer over here, or I'm being compensated over here, which is, again, not a tax expert, told tax deductible, advisory fees not. How does a wirehouse compete with that? Think about it. Right? Now, when you take that relationship, a lot of my clients, when we look at assets, painters, our average is going to be anywhere from $50 to $100,000 per year per client doing super high level work. So if this interests you, what's next? You cannot morph into, you just can't slap it on them of now a personal CFO and operate with a rep or advisor mentality. This is all about you and creating an identity evolution, right? You've got to be a leader. You've got to be a coach. You are not just there to run money and to be kind of, their person in a um, uh, reactive manner. We're here to drive things, right? Very much about accountability. Very much you're leading that client or that family. You transcend. Everybody uses the word trusted advisor. We transcend that, where we have a seat at the table. And I will tell you, and again, it's not a very big sample size. Like I said, I've got 10 or 15, 10 or 12 doing this. So maybe our client space is maybe 150, 200 collaboratively. I can say this at the time of this recording. None of my clients have ever been fired from a client because that's the value we create. So here's what I'm going to say. If you're a younger advisor and you want to do something unique and meaningful, I'm not saying what you're doing now is not meaningful. Let me rephrase that. Unique and even have more meaning, have more impact, really do some high level stuff. I'd have you explore the personal CFO space. I just think it is, from my own situation here, it is a vastly needed area of expertise that the industry now is just like literally now just starting to see it. So if you want to be on the vanguard, early adopter, I think that's a good place to look, especially if you like working with business owners and that level of complexity. I think that's a cool place. And with that said, I want to say thank you for listening and watching this episode of Magellan Network Show. If you have a question, reach out. CoachJoe.guru, Guru. I'll be happy to explain how I help advisors morph into that personal CFO space. I also run a mastermind group dedicated to that space also. So have a great Friday, great weekend. Thank you for listening, watching. If you like this, subscribe. If you're not, forward this episode to a colleague, like our video, audio, depending on how you're consuming our content. And I will see you all again in 7 days.